and please start anytime. Enjoy.
Okay. So, hello everyone. It is my pleasure to host this Ask Me Anything session with Tanja Lange. And I hope we have some good questions and good discussion in the coming half an hour. So I guess Tanja needs no introduction in any crypto security related venue, but if you would like to introduce her, maybe you would say that she's a full professor at Technical University at Eindhoven University of Technology since 2006. She got her PhD from Essen in 2002, working on, you're not going to believe it, hyperelliptic curves, and afterwards did postdoc in Bochum, and then went as associate professor to Denmark, and finally joined Eindhoven in 2006. Basically, her work is bridging the gap between algebraic geometry, theoretical cryptanalysis, and real-world information security. But basically, everybody knows her as the expert on curve-based crypto and also post-quantum crypto. And Tanja, of course, is serving on many things like editorial board journals, many PCs, organized many conferences. She is also in the workshop series on post-quantum crypto, coordinated well-known EU H2020 project PQ Crypto on post-quantum cryptography. I also noticed she graduated close to 20 PhD students. So yeah, we could go on like this. But if I would say something about Tanja that you maybe don't know, I would also say that, yeah, actually I know Tanja since 2001, when she was a PhD student in Essen. You had this office in the attic, right? And yeah, that was like really like very, very, very kind of strange place, but at the same time nice, and quite some people from the ECC community were at that place at certain point in time in the past 2 decades. And Tanja had Professor Gerhard Frey as her supervisor. And maybe what also more junior people don't know about her is that Tanja enjoyed knitting. I guess you still do, but we don't see it in this online setting. So yeah, that's somehow something that that will also probably come back later. So yeah, one more anecdote I want to tell. Tanja is quite often knitting socks, and if you have a pair of socks from Tanja, that usually means something, right? And at some point, I was asked when traveling to Bochum to one of the events Tanja organized to bring some orange wool, because she was supposed to do some socks for some Dutch people. And apparently when she would ask, so what color would you like on your sock? They would usually say orange, of course. So yeah, that was not so easy to find elsewhere, but in Holland, no problem. So you can get as much orange wool as you need. So that was no problem. So yeah. Please use now next, close to half an hour to ask Tanja anything you've always wanted to know and didn't get a chance. So I will check the Zoom, but maybe we can kick it off with one more question from me about because this is chess, and chess is going on for like it's more than 2 decades now. And I guess you've been to many in the past. I don't know, your first must have been also early 2000 or so, when you were finishing PhD or something like that.
It was actually just when I started postdoc, so in 2003 when it was in Cologne. So Christoph Paar was organizing it there, and so essentially everybody who was in Bochum at that time got involved, and that was my first chess conference, and it was absolutely awesome to see all the community and get to know this area. I mean, I had been working on efficient implementations, what a mathematician considers efficient implementations, basically sitting there with pen and paper and scribbling formulas and then doing some implementations in C, timing them, but I didn't actually do like fine field implementations myself at that point. It was all GMP based, and there was so much call overhead. And then getting in touch with people who were actually going not just like implementation at the software level, assembly and so on, but really going to hardware and putting those things together. And not, I mean, Christoph Paar's group had awesome people like that. So at that point, Thomas Wollinger was one of his PhD students. A bit later, Jan Pelzel was starting. So there were lots of good people involved, but then seeing the whole community was really an eye-opener. And I've been to most chess conferences since. There were a few that I had to miss, unfortunately, but yeah, like looking back at many nice chess conferences, and well, now see people online.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask also, like, how did it change for you? Like, do you kind of, can you comment on how different chess of today is than from those days? I mean, mind the online part, but like in terms of topics, in terms of, you know, program papers, submissions.
Chess has gotten a lot broader than it was back then. So it was really more on hardware, getting like a breakthrough with getting software things into chess. And I mean, now we're seeing lots of software on small devices at chess, and I think it actually has a very good place here. And also one thing which I noticed in more recent chess is that we now even have new designs published at chess. So it used to be like somebody makes a system and then some years later there's a paper at chess showing how to implement it. I mean, I remember 2004 when it was in Boston, there was like a chess when it was shown that ECC can be faster than RSA, and it was like a big breakthrough in these conversations, in these discussions and implementations. But also we're looking at 2004. ECC was introduced in 1985, so there's like a huge gap of like catching up and getting things deployed on small devices. 2001, I believe, people were still like super excited to get ECC put on a smart card at all. Not with security, not talking about side channel resistance or now masking or so on, but like getting it onto the device at all. And I think we have come a long way since. I mean, for one thing, our devices have gotten more powerful, but even if you now go down to the basic washing machine chips, community has figured out how to do some crypto implementations even on the smallest devices that we have sitting around, even on the 8-bit processors. So I think like a lot of broadening, a lot more papers, and I think it's also really, really interesting to see like post-quantum crypto being here, or the next session after our AMA with like avant-garde crypto. I like the title because that's really what it is. I mean, it is new crypto designs and breaking into it with efficient implementation and seeing how it fits. So I think lots of positive developments.
Yes, so kind of, yeah, even broadening the community, you would say, right? You kind of already mentioned it, but maybe we can kind of go back to that, the post-quantum crypto deployment, and in general, how's it going? Where does it go in terms of standardization and the competition? So what are your thoughts, if you kind of want to give us some kind of...
Right now, most of us are really, really busy with the day-to-day business because the competition is like, well, can you really say in the hot phase after so many years, but it still feels like it's the hot phase because decisions haven't been made yet. So this is still the time where I know many of the teams got requests from NIST to like investigate side channel resistance, or there are some more questions about this or that, and we're interested in seeing like how much faster you can go. There's a fierce competition among the lattice candidates, of course, because NIST had announced that they would only accept one of Saber, Kyber, and Entro. Well, I mean, at most, I should say, but I mean, like, there's like kind of a pushing there. And so also in that field, we see lots of implementations and highlights and so on. Myself, I'm in the competition with a code-based system. So as one of the finalists is Classic Middle East. And this is a very nice one for hardware in that it's all binary. So it's really happy for arithmetic. It's really kind of hardware circuit based. It's the math behind it is a big matrix times vector multiplication, so pretty simple operations as well. But to make it a lot more challenging, the key sizes are very large. So we're looking at something where this big matrix fits a megabyte, and some shameless promotion. So later in this conference, there's also a talk by Minxin Cheng and Tung Shu, where they show how to get this deployed on Cortex-M M4. And this is something which is non-trivial. So there's still challenges with different candidates, but there's also a start already of kind of looking beyond the competition. I mean, I should also give a shout out to my other teams. So there's also Entro Prime and and Sphinx, which I strongly hope will do see standardization. So I haven't given up on those just because I didn't mention them. So with Sphinx, that's the hash-based signature system, which is listed as an alternate, but got an honorable mention as something which is actually ready for standardization. And we have seen some issues with some of the signature systems. So we are actually optimistic that it might actually be in the fourth round. Not entering the fourth round, but standardized after the third round before the fourth round, and then Entropime, which I expect to get into the fourth round. But we're also thinking already beyond, like post-quantum, post-NIST, post-quantum cryptography. So what are we doing after this? NIST has announced another round where they actually asking for post-quantum. I see a comment in the chat by Lorenz Pani. So we're looking into like what is missing in the NIST competition. NIST themselves has said they would be interested in having some signature systems which are based on assumptions other than lattices. So there's work in the assertion-based cryptography community, which has evolved a lot during the last few years. It's super interesting. Like you mentioned before, I come from algebraic geometry, elliptic curve kind of stuff. And so isogenies are the thing that many of us are jumping on because it is amazingly rich in the mathematics you need there, but also amazingly applicable because you're getting systems which are a lot smaller than any of the other post-quantum schemes, but also a lot more challenging. So it's really a nice area to play around, and it's a very friendly community. So if you like that field, jump in, it's cool. And there might even be something to be submitted for this competition. And then, we have the Seaside design, which achieves something which none of the NIST candidates is doing, namely it's doing a non-interactive Diffie-Hellman exchange. But I wouldn't be comfortable at this point pushing it for standardization, but it's certainly something I would like to see more eyes on. So I think post-quantum will be with us for a while, and it is sufficiently challenging to get onto small devices that I think it's also a chess topic. I mean, this chess, we have 2 full sessions on post-quantum, and then we had a session which even included like quantum group analysis on elliptic curves. So I think we're going to see a lot more at chess in the future.
Yes, indeed. So maybe let's look at some questions from the chat. So Torben asked, what is or was your favorite country to live and work in? Maybe pre and post pandemic is not the same, but yeah, just,
Yeah, it's complicated. I haven't actually officially lived in so many countries. So, I mean, you ran through my CV. So, I mean, I've been Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands. But I had the luxury of living short-term, like a few months or several months at a time, also in Canada. So there was a long visit at the Fields Institute. I was at Berkeley for some time, several visits to Chicago, many visits to Taiwan. And so it's really hard to make a decision there because it's like so many different flavors. I think post-pandemic, Taiwan certainly gets a thumbs up for being the safest place on earth. And also a very nice place if you're into spicy food and mountains. Netherlands scores rather low on the mountains part, but somehow I've been living there since 2007. So it's apparently it has something. So I think
it seems to work for you.
If they are open, I mean, you're a foreigner in most places you go to, and some countries are more welcoming, some countries are better with English, and that certainly makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And maybe one more question from Torben. Any steps in your career that you regret or would do differently today? So kind of some tips for the new generation.
I guess it's this moment where you're supposed to kind of reflect on your shortcomings or whatever, but I think I got pretty lucky and happy with the decisions I made. Also, I mean, when I was on the job market, how to say this? I wasn't actually on the job market when I came to Eindhoven, but it was a very unusual time that suddenly several senior positions were available. And that was due to many unfortunate events. So Hans Sobertin was sick in Bochum. Thomas Beeth had died in Karlsruhe. And happy occasion, Eindhoven was just looking for a new person. And so I was actually interviewing in 3 different positions and had kind of the the luxury of choice or the problem of choice. And so I think it went well. Of course, one always goes into like, hey, how would it have been to be in Bochum? It's a much bigger group. But I'm also pretty proud of what we built up in Eindhoven. Not to compete with you later in Nijmegen. I think both groups are great. But so I'm pretty happy with having built my own group, having built much smaller than Bochum, but my own empire there, and then still having good collaborations over the world, and in particular with Bochum, with the CADA initiative.
Yeah, location-wise, it's really good. You can kind of easily collaborate. And
exactly. I mean, like anything in Europe, you're so well connected, and you have so many places around. You have the train system, Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, everything is there. So, yep. Yeah. Happy about that. Decisions on topics. I think I got also very lucky about thinking about post-quantum early on. So we organized the first post-quantum workshop already in 2006. So advice to young people, be adventurous, look at things. Sometimes it's kind of a weird feeling getting into a new field that nobody is working on yet, but it makes you an early adopter, and that pays off in the end. I mean, we did sharks, which worked pretty well, like getting special purpose hardware. We did the post-quantum series, which really turned into something, but the early years went so easy. So trying to find money for post-quantum, everybody was like, oh, but it's so far away. And now we're all going like, oh my God, it's right there. Are we going to be fast enough? And so, yep, as early adopter, I go like, told you so. But these are the things you'll notice.
Yeah, good. Questions are popping in, so let's move on. So Boyin actually mentioned something that you kind of already mentioned a bit. How much do you think recent results at chess with respect to efficiency and side channels will end up affecting the NIST competition results?
Well, as one of the people who is working on this, I do believe that this has a strong influence. I mean, we can only provide them with information and hope that they listen. I do expect that they do look at how much things can be implemented. And there were concerns about, for instance, classic McLeese, can it even be run on small devices? And I think showing that, yes, it is working here, but also chess is not existing in a vacuum. So there are the conferences. Also, there was another paper implementing classic McLeese on a small device, which was at CADIS last year. And so showing the whole spectrum. I think chess is nice because we have a huge community here. So even if not everybody is giving a talk, everybody is here. We're having very active discussions, and I do hope that the NIST folks are listening. I haven't scanned the list of participants to see whether they're, but seeing 6 screens full of people, I hope that we have a quorum, and I understand it's maybe not the time zone, so they might be watching. So NIST folks, if you're seeing this, please take into account all the cool results here.
They can be on YouTube also, kind of more behind the scene. Yeah, so no worries. Kevin has a more kind of open question. Do you feel more like a computer scientist or a mathematician at this point?
Oh, that's a really complicated question. I always dodge this question by answering I'm a cryptographer. And I'm actually surprised that you only say math or computer science, because I think there's also a good portion of our DNA in electroengineering, and in particular with chess. Many of the things we do here, like building circuits or thinking about side channels, are more in the EE field. And I think in order to really feel like a cryptographer, you have to bring in all of those things. Now, there are some things where your background does show. I think we mathematicians are more nitpicky, so having a background in mathematics makes you more look for definitions and makes you more precise in statements. And so in that sense, I think I can't deny that I got my degrees in mathematics. My teaching is still in mathematics. So if pushed to pick one of the 3, it's math. But of course, when I go to a math conference, they think of me as a computer science or even like engineering. And when you go to computer scientists, you're the mathematician. So it's like, I think we're very happy when we're at crypto conferences, and we're a little bit on the odd one out when you're at one of the pure fields. Yes. I guess, Kevin, the same applies to you. I mean, you moved from pure math to algorithmic math and then computer science, so, or crypto.
Yeah, but the question's for you.
Nice dodging.
Okay. So Christine has a question. In a kind of male-dominated field, okay, I was just waiting for this. Have you ever had a moment where you thought this would have gone smoother, nicer, better with a more diverse crowd?
Oof. Phrased like this, I can't think of something where diversity would be more the issue. But if the question is whether there is some issues with guys hitting on you, I mean, I've now reached a level of seniority ugliness that doesn't happen anymore. Plus, bringing one partner to a conference also helps. But certainly in my younger times, there were some events where I felt like, yeah, this is a little bit awkward. I was hoping for getting the compliments on my work and not for my body parts. But I've like for working on things, many people say, okay, if you have a more diverse team, you get more influences. I guess I'm too old and too used to the system to really see differences. Plus, well, whenever I'm there, then I'm bringing in the diversity. So.
Indeed, you have it intrinsically. So now we go to food. I guess you won't mind because you already expressed some. Christine also is asking which color is your favorite chili pepper, and Ben followed on that with like, what were your top 3 hot sauces? So you can speak to.
So the chili pepper. I'm totally fine with boring red chilies if they're like sufficiently flavorful. Really exciting. In the Netherlands, you can get a type which is called Ajuma pepper, which is pretty close to habaneros. And those are bright orange and have just a fantastic flavor. Second up would be chocolate habaneros. Hot sauces, trickier. I've sampled a whole bunch and I wouldn't remember the labels. So I have to skip on that one. But yeah, okay. I do like spicy food. That seems to be kind of implied by that. And definitely.
Okay, sure. Okay, then back to research a bit. Bo Yuan Peng, I've noticed that your team proposed some improvements in Seaside, which will be presented tomorrow. And how do you think Seaside, with respect to performance issue?
Well, it's a great area for improvements, meaning it is dead slow and is somewhat dead slow now. So compared to the other post-quantum candidates, well, isogenies in general are pretty slow, and then doing the Seaside version of isogenies compared to the SIDH version is kind of doomed to be slower just because of the way that the operations work. But it also means that there's an interesting challenge to get it somewhat less pathetically slow, and I think we have reached a level where if you want the functionality that it gives you, it is usable. So I've seen some software projects where people go like, hey, I'd like to have some post-quantum things, but the only thing that fits for my data flow is Seaside. Jesus has done a great job to go together with Gora and Francisco in having a library where you can actually do lots of these different isogen-based systems. There's now also a Python version of it, which is more portable. And of course, those get even slower. I mean, what we have here in Seaside is actually setting speed records. So in the C-Tide paper here is setting speed records. With the library in particular, with the Python version, it goes for usability and portability. And I think it's an edge where if you don't have to do it so often, it is usable. The more interesting question is security. And well, please cryptanalyze.
Okay. So let's move to platforms. Fabio is asking if you think RISC-V will play an important role in the industry in the near future.
Ooh, that is an interesting question. So I've been more optimistic in the past, then gotten a little pessimistic, seeing kind of too much diversity there. So getting people to do efficient implementations for something is a lot of work. And if each instruction set has something else, then it's quite a pain to do something one size fits all. And like I had a student who ported the SALT library to it doing no instruction set extensions. So really like the basic version, that is really, really slow. So no fun doing that. And then, okay, well, the multiplier is pretty likely, the 32-bit multiplier is pretty likely to be there. But then after that, it's such a gamble of what you're going to find on a platform that I fear that it's not doing itself a favor for being so open and so variable. Now, seeing, I was at the TASER workshop yesterday evening and seeing like more efforts to standardize things, having like a kind of, this is what we want to provide in crypto, might counterbalance that. It needs to be seen how much the industry adopts it, because in the end, even if it's open, I can't go to my kind of workshop and just solder myself a RISC-V. I need some chip producer to actually make one. And if the chip producing industry is seeing benefit in that, in having kind of the whole package, then I think it's more likely to succeed. And otherwise, I'm somewhat pessimistic at this point.
So you don't expect that NIST would also consider RISC-V implementations for the competition? That's Gustavo.
You mean that for making a decision? I think it's a bit late right now, because I mean, they have settled on the platforms, and so lots of the community has, well, focused on doing something suitable for that. For instance, the PQM4 team has done a great deal of getting all the different systems into a comparable benchmarking there, and getting something similar working for RISC-V at this point, where they want to decide around the turning of the year, probably not influencing the decision. But I think for platforms for chess, it's interesting. For platforms for actual deployment, it needs to be seen how much support there is.
Indeed. Okay, maybe interesting open question from Mark. Say you had a free wish. What would you like to change in the academic world or the daily academic work?
Ooh. Moment where you have to think forever until the genie is getting bored and then you say something. So let me say stuff that comes to my mind rather than having kind of the concrete wish. So this is going to be more of a rambling rant. So I think one thing which is a problem in the academia is how we evaluate each other. In many situations, I mean, if it's peer review, if we're talking to one another, we have a good idea of what people are capable of. We can say, yes, conferences are so much more important. Chess is so much more important for this area. So a paper at chess is really valuable. And if I want to hire somebody in this area, I look for their contribution to chess. But then we get to kind of the university, or worse, for kind of countrywide reviews where they have, say, Thomson Scientific and impact factors and so on. And if I would change the system, that would be certainly something that would go out of the window. Kind of, it is convenient for administrators to have numbers, but it so much misses the nuances of the field. For instance, coming from the more mathy side, we write papers a lot slower than if you improve security. Each paper is like a really big work where you're going into this and going into that, you're finding implementation. And in the other direction, I've also written some papers on proof of security, and it's like an afternoon till you have a proof. I mean, optimistically speaking, but it's not comparable if you're doing page count things. So that is something. And then also we don't have good metrics for including work such as open source software or service to the community or artifacts. I really like how chess is now having the artifacts and having the artifacts review, because it makes you feel appreciated for the work you're putting into. And big shout out to all the people who have been putting effort into it. I'm sorry for not having time enough to join myself, but I really appreciate what you have all been doing there and making this a stable thing, having artifacts posted on the web, having the chess publications moved to open access. I think it's a fantastic thing. So I don't think I need kind of the special genie for those wishes. I really like swimming along and seeing how the chess community is doing things in a way that I appreciate. But for the academic system, metrics is probably what it boils down to. But then within the metrics, if the genie is more narrow, saying, hey, but you cannot say no numbers, no impact factor, and please include software, then it will be a hard choice.
Yes, thanks. Great. Let us end with something more interesting for me. So you were used to travel quite a lot. So what do you expect will be your next physical conference?
Oh, I keep postponing it. I had really hoped to be in Duxtural later this year. There's a workshop on fund group analysis, which is one of the highlights, getting people together on these different areas. And they're gonna have some in-person component, and with at least one IT hearing, I just clicked, I'm gonna participate online. I think my risk assessment these days is still too paranoid, so I will also miss your Eurocrypt. Sorry, Leila. I really don't know what my first in-person conference will be.
So not decided.
No,
maybe real world crypto then.
There's real world crypto coming up. There's a Logan Center workshop on embedded post-quant that's coming up. And I really don't know whether end of January or early January, we're going to be back into a system where I can really say like, yep, I'm going there and I'll feel good about it. So, well, I guess we are going to be 2D for another time.
Yes, it's not so bad.
Go to in-person events, please stay safe.
Yes. Okay, I think it's, I also don't see any questions. I think it's time to end. Let's thank Tanja for this great session. So it was really fun, and glad that I saw you at least like this, a bit more closer, and get a chance to chat. So yeah.
Thank you for all the moderations and the questions you brought in, and to all the other people who asked questions. I'll take a look at the Zulip, and if I do remember some hot sauce, I'll promise to put some more thumbs up in there.
Yes. Thank